Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. Today we're going to be taking another look at the XRP Dragon Pattern, as there have been a lot of developments in price over the last day or so since I released the last video. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into the chart. For additional information and exclusive perks, do consider joining me and the rest of our community on Patreon. So taking a look at the XRP chart, this is the 4-hour chart. If you haven't watched my previous videos in this regard, what we're looking at here is known as a dragon pattern, with the head right here, the front feet down here, the hump right here, the rear feet right here, moving into the tail. Now I've been talking about this descending triangle that we're seeing right here in terms of Elliott wave, which I've talked about being an A, B, C, D, E descending triangle pattern. In the previous video, I do believe that I jumped the gun by calling the termination of the D wave right here up at the top of this trend line, because what we've seen since then is price breaking out of the pattern. Now, as it stands right now, this pattern is still valid and has not been broken, but it would appear that this D wave has been extended outside of the upper trend line. Now, a lot of times what you'll see in patterns similar to this is price will break out in this area here, doing kind of a fake out to the upside, gathering buy-side liquidity here before dropping back into the pattern. This gets all of the breakout traders to buy in. This gets all of the longs to start chasing these green candles. Now, I'm not saying that that's absolutely the case of what we're seeing here, but that's something that we see a lot of times. And by taking a look at the liquidation heat map, this is the 2-day chart. As we know, there were two very condensed areas of liquidity resting right here that got taken out yesterday. Since that point, liquidity has been stacking up on the sell side below current price as well as on the buy side above current price. With current price trading at about $3.07.5, we can see that right up here above current price at about 3.077 cents, there's a very concentrated band of liquidity here. There's also one at 308, one developing here at 309, and one up here just over $3.10. And it's starting to look like in the price action that it's very likely that we could see this come up and take this buy-side liquidity very soon. Now jumping over and looking at the 1-month chart, we can see that above current price here, the thickest band of liquidity on the heat map is centered right here at about $3.16, with a very wide band that is reaching down to about $3.13 and up as high as about $3.20. When compared to these other two concentrations of liquidity on the map that we just looked at, you can see they pale in comparison compared to the concentration of this one. Now, there certainly is a chance that price could continue up here and take out this liquidity. As I've been saying, in trading, there's no 100%, and things are constantly changing, and it's very possible price could continue to move upward. So what does this mean in regard to the XRP Dragon Pattern? Well, there's a couple of different options. Now, either this descending triangle pattern is invalid, and that price could very well be breaking out of this pattern, with this basically being completely off of the table. And if we look at this current wave that we're seeing here now, we have a very clear 5-wave move to the upside, which we are in right now, which could in itself invalidate the ABCDE descending triangle pattern. And if this is the case, and this impulse wave is playing out and it's separate from that pattern altogether, or that pattern wasn't valid to begin with, we could expect to see at some point an ABC retracement, which if this goes up high enough, we could end up seeing it in a smaller fashion coming back to retest this upper trend line, something similar to this. Say this 5th wave comes up here, we end up getting a retest of this upper trend line, then we could see a breakout to the upside here, with the ABCDE descending triangle pattern being invalid. Now, if the descending triangle pattern is still valid and we are still going to see an E wave in the future, then it's very possible that this could be the D wave here, because there is still a valid count in regard to this. But these particular patterns are corrective waves. So what we could be seeing here in this regard is what's called an extended C wave or a sub-C, but generally these C waves won't get any longer than about twice the length of wave A, and it's getting very close, if not pushing it right now, which in itself could invalidate it. Now we know this is possible because we can see that it has a three-wave move up, a three-way move down, and we are now seeing what looks to be a five-wave move up, all of which are subwaves of this ABC correction. Now, if this is the case, what we would expect to see would be this D topping out, then moving down into the E. Now, this E wave does not necessarily have to come all the way down to this lower trend line. Generally, what you will see is a retracement in the range of the 3.82 to the 786. In this case, we could expect to see the retracement come down into these areas. Obviously, we can't calculate this right now because we have not seen the termination of this wave. And that's assuming that the D wave is in fact valid. And we're not just breaking out on a five-wave move to the upside with a correction and a continuation afterwards. Now, something else that I found that's very interesting, if we look back earlier on the price action here, this is where we're currently trading. This is the previous part of the pattern from the Trump election pump breakout, which essentially set the all-time high right here. Is if we take a look at this pattern and we pull a fib level from the pattern high all the way down here to the pattern low, you'll notice that when price was in a similar situation on this pattern, breaking out of the upper trend line, moving to the upside, it ended up retesting the upper trend line, then continuing to break out to the upside. But in doing so, it stalled out right in the area of the 618 before reversing down to setting the low, then going on to make a 90% increase from that low to the new all-time high that it set right here. If we take this pattern and we then reverse it as it's sitting right here, you can see that the low of this pattern that came as a result of setting this high here came down and nearly touched the 786. It came right between the 702 and the 786. This pattern looks very similar to what we're seeing. If you look at this trend line right here, we look at the breakout of the upper trend line, you can see that if it follows this pattern coming to the downside here, this could represent the wave E that we've been looking for on this particular pattern. If we do the same thing on this, going to the all-time high, pulling some fib levels here, then reversing them back in the same fashion that we just did, we can see that it takes the price up to about $3.26 to hit the 618. If we then jump back to the heat map that we were just looking at, we can see the area we just talked about right here sitting at about that 316 area, but we also have another concentrated area of liquidity that is resting right here at about $3.29, which would be right in the area of these fib levels right here at the bottom, with 326 here up to 334 for the 702. Now, I don't know if price is going to move up here and continue up to these levels before getting rejected. I don't know if price is going to come down, get rejected somewhere in this area, come back for a retest, then move up to higher levels like we saw in the previous pattern that we just looked at before coming to the downside, which could essentially finish this pattern out in the descending triangle fashion, being something like this, to where we could see that E wave before moving up into the primary fifth wave of the overall pattern. And there's also a chance that if the descending triangle pattern has been invalidated or wasn't valid to begin with, then what we could be seeing would essentially just be the continuation and the breakout of the fifth wave of the primary 5-wave impulse to the upside has actually already started, with the wave 4 termination occurring right here. So there are a couple different possibilities. There's a couple different ways to look at this, but we know kind of what to watch for at this point. There is a chance this could be the continuation, and we've already started the fifth wave. There could be a chance that we're just seeing the extended wave D coming down into the wave E, which will terminate somewhere in this area before seeing the start of this fifth wave. So one telling sign will be what ends up happening with this area right here. Do we end up seeing a situation where the price comes up here, retests off of this trend line, then continues? Because if this is an extended or a sub C of the ABC with an extended D termination, I would expect to see the E wave come down into this area right here. Very likely right here at this line, right in this general area, rather than just coming up and doing this before moving on. I would expect something much closer to this, then moving up, with this being the E termination, this being the D termination. But if it doesn't get below this trend line here on a potential retest, then it's very likely that this E wave is negated, and we've actually already started moving into the fifth wave to the upside. So those will all be things to watch for. I'll certainly be keeping my eyes open, trying to figure out where this pattern is. As I already tried shorting this move in this area, adding to my shorts, I ended up reducing my position by 50% to reduce my risk. With price trading up into this area last night, I ended up just closing the short completely because the chart was looking like it was going to make a bullish move, which we're actually seeing right now moving to the upside. So I am still planning on putting a short in. I actually have 2 limit orders in place already in this area, and I'll be watching to see how that goes. I may let them execute, I may not. It just depends on the price action, because either way this goes, whether or not this is an extended C or whether or not this is a fifth wave, at some point it's going to terminate, likely being followed by an ABC down. Now, whether or not it retests off of this lower trend line and moves to the upside, or whether it breaks through this trend line for the E-wave termination remains to be seen. But either way, there's still an opportunity for a trade here. And regardless of which path it takes, whether it's this one or whether it's this one, I will still be looking to get an entry down here for the fifth wave to the upside. In regards to trading, you have to be like water, because we all know how incredibly difficult it is to predict these moves ahead of time. And as they change and evolve, we as traders have to adapt to them so that we can trade moving forward. We can't get stuck on one particular idea. I am still leaning towards the E-wave, but there is a very good possibility that it won't come to fruition. Now, could the price just continue to tear up? It sure could. But I think it's very likely we're going to see some kind of a consolidation. Even if it doesn't come quite down to this trend line, at some point we're going to have to see a consolidation before it continues up. So it doesn't matter if it's this option, or this option. There are going to be trading opportunities here nonetheless. So that's what I'll be looking for as a trader, is the opportunity that presents itself. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Good luck and have a great day.